while we were working on the rest of this, I wanted to have a bit of a chat with all of y'all about something super interesting. So who in chat knows what NFTs are? Have you heard this NFT? This is like a big craze that's coming into focus. Or it might just happen to be where I'm looking. I'm seeing NFTs all the time. Judging on chat, a fair few yeses, more no's. Digital art, online art, that's technically not what it is. Digital art sales for millions, says Ender Dan. Well, a lot of people in chat don't actually know, so let me give you the rundown, a bit of an explanation. NFT is a non-fungible... fungible token. Okay? This is... Fungible means exchangeable, changeable, right? So you can't do that. It is a unique, exclusive identifier token, essentially. And what's happening in the world of NFTs is people are using the blockchain technology, which is the public ledger that can be verified by anyone, and they're using it to store these tokens. And the tokens are attached to various pieces of digital assets that can then be verified that so-and-so has the token that's linked to it, right? The idea is ownership of something. And this ownership is of something that anyone can copy, right? Like anyone can make a copy of digital art, but if you have the token for the NFT, you are the original owner, so to speak. So this will immediately probably appeal to some people and not to others. It never really appealed to me, the idea of ownership of digital assets. But one of the places it's really taking off is in the art world, because digital artists do not have the same kind of, I don't know what the right word for it is, but you'll know what I'm talking about, the same kind of tangible quality and reality of having a painting that can sell. So if you think about the art world, we all know, like, you know, you hear stories of this painter sold this thing for millions of dollars or pounds or whatever, you know, astronomical amounts of money. And you know, it kind of makes sense on one hand. Some people might think it's preposterous. Personally, I think that, you know, value is something that you give based on your needs. And when all your needs are met, then your needs can, and your value can extend into less essential things like art. Although some people are going to argue that art is essential, right? You know what I mean. The more your needs are taken care of, then you can put your wealth and your value into other things. So some people put it into art, and art is valued a lot to them, and they collect it, right? But in the digital space, that's hard to do because people can make copies of it. Well, now you can sell verifiable tokens, and you know, it taking off in the art world makes a lot of sense to me because, like, everyone's probably got some sort of book somewhere, maybe from school, with a picture of the Mona Lisa or some art by Van Gogh, right? I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong. Van Gogh. Just pictured him wearing black eyeliner. So the thing with that, though, is that there is only one original, and people can verify it. Experts generally can verify it. And you can't do this with digital art until now. Now you can. You can attach like this NFT, this non fungible token, to the art piece. And then you can essentially sell the ownership of the digital art. So the person who has it will have a copy like everyone else, but they will also have this verifiable, and it can be verified through the blockchain, which is a public ledger. That's an important part of it. Anyone can go on there and verify it. They can be the owner of it, right? Now, there are so many things that come along with this that are really fascinating. So at the moment, what you're seeing, I'm going to drink some tea. You're seeing a lot of like speculation around this and people throwing extraordinary amounts of money at it. Jack Dorsey's his Twitter account, like he sold his Twitter account. His first tweet that he put on Twitter is sold for like several million, and that can be resold again, you know? So there's this speculation thing happening. Big speculation thing happening. So if you want to look into this further, look up stuff like, I think they're called crypto cats and crypto punks, and there's all these like very sort of like easy to replicate pixel art, you know, almost like Minecraft block textures, right? 8x8 pictures of certain pixelated crypto characters, and there's thousands of them, but they're trading at crazy amounts, like thousands each. And that's because they're unique and they've got this NFT attached to them that verifies ownership. And so people are getting involved in a speculative way where I think they're looking at it as if, like, this is the next big craze. And so if I go around throwing money at all these NFTs, I can sell them on. And there's even been some examples of some very kind of low-key, rudimentary attempts at making art. You know, pictures of things that we would consider perhaps to be rather mundane, and then being able to resell it almost immediately. This is, as someone says in chat, he's talking about trading NFTs. Yeah, so people are trading it. Now this is like, I think it's very much a bubble, and a bubble that could burst, because it's sort of similar to the .com boom, where everyone knows that this technology is going to be useful. This .com stuff, this is the future. It's going to be big. But then everyone went out and brought anything with a .com attached to it. And then it turned out a lot of it didn't have as much value. Well, that was way too much of that. Didn't really think about, we'll never need to craft that again, basically. So yeah, everyone goes out there and like throws money at this thing, right? And then it all crashes and people realize that it's not worth as much money. But then, you know, in the future, later on, things settle down and eventually, you know, websites, domains, they have their sort of value back again, right? So I think we're looking at a bubble right now. I think we're looking at people heavily speculating on resale value. And there are some really bizarre things being sold. For example, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of like Pokemon cards becoming valued very high again recently. And one of the things I learned is that Logan Paul is actually making a lot of money off of doing these videos where he's like, I spent $500,000 on a unopened Pokemon deck of cards, and he makes a video about it, right? Now, video revenue is not enough to reimburse that $500,000. So how is he making his money on it? Well, one of the ways they're actually doing it is they sell the rights to the opening of a particular card. So if he opens up a Charizard, which is considered one of the rarest, and by the way, you know, I recently went and grabbed my old Pokemon cards, had a look. I got a couple of Charizard shinies. I was talking to Grian about it, and he reckons that my collection might be worth a couple of grand. And I was kind of tempted to maybe sell it, but I actually, every time I open up my Pokemon cards, I have a warm feeling towards them. I just like looking at them, and I was like, I'm not going to waste my time trying to sell this stuff. I'll just hold on to it, you know. Anyway, getting a little bit sidetracked. Logan Paul sells the NFTs to these videos. Okay, whoever buys them does not own the card that's in the video, or, you know, has exclusive rights to the video. Anyone can use it, but they have that unique ownership of it. And these clips of opening Pokemon cards are selling for like 20 grand. So he opens up a pack full of cards, he's got that revenue coming in, and he's got these NFTs funding the buying of the cards. It's all very speculative and like a bubble that could collapse. It really seems risky. And to anyone listening and thinking about getting in on this as if like you can make money and all of that, I don't like those games. I wouldn't do that with your money. There's this thing called FOMO, fear of missing out. And I think there's been a lot of that around Bitcoin, around stock markets and stuff like that lately. It could also be that I've just been drawn to those topics. When you're drawn to a certain area in this internet age, you know, it makes you feel like this is what the whole world is looking at sometimes. Maybe not everyone is. Same as the GME fiasco. Yeah, that's what I meant by the stocks. That was the thing, wasn't it, that kicked it all off, right? So then people have this fear of missing out on, oh, there's this whole, you know, big stock craze going on at the moment. I don't want to miss out. I want to be a part of it. I've been doing a little bit of crypto mining recently, and when I get my little paycheck in, which is a fraction of the currency, I'm not going to do it again because I've realized that I got pulled into wasting my time doing something that was revolving around fear of missing out. I don't really have a vested interest or much of an interest in actually doing this stuff. And as I said, it was, you know, sort of fear of missing out. Oh, I should really get involved in this because it's going to be worth so much in the future. I mean, think about what you're doing with your own time, like right now, as opposed to some speculative value in the future. I just feel like I was getting caught up in something. And because it's using power from my house, I've also been doing research into how much power consumption it is using, because this is another worry about blockchain technology, that we're sort of driving artificial scarcity with these blockchain technologies and using a ton of energy. So this is another big concern around the NFT things, is that they're taking place on the blockchain. A lot of it is being done through Ethereum, and it's not an energy efficient blockchain. There's one that I've heard of called Nano, but I haven't done tons of research into it. There is a extraordinary amount of power being consumed to run Bitcoin and blockchain technology. And being someone who tries to be neutral and research things without getting pulled into one camp or another, my research has led me to believe that this probably is quite negative. However, there isn't really enough data to fully assess how much power is being used yet. So in order to process all these NFTs that people are trading, they've got to be a part of this public blockchain, and that uses loads of processing power. When you go into the Bitcoin and pro cryptocurrency camps to learn about the statistics, they love to play up this idea of our system uses a fraction of the environmental impact that the traditional banking system does. And, that is, on one hand, technically true, but on another hand, what it doesn't address is that when you scale up the size of Bitcoin to the size of the traditional banking system, then all of a sudden, Bitcoin becomes astronomically more impactful on the environment, because it's using loads of hardware and computers and energy, and not all energy comes from clean sources. Another common argument in the crypto camp is that we can do this from clean energy sources, which are solar, renewable. They're not just 100% clean and renewable with no consequence. You have to get the materials and the resources for somewhere, and you can't at the moment really assess how much of the power going into all of this is green or not. And another thing that gets talked about inside of these communities is the idea that the power usage levels off, and this is where it goes a bit beyond me. But essentially what Bitcoin does is it kind of drives scarcity. So the value is going up over time, right? You've heard these hype waves coming in. Bitcoin was valued at $1,000 a few years ago, then it's $4,000, goes down again, then all of a sudden this year it's up to $50,000, and this is what drives the fear of missing out. Everyone's thinking, I should have brought that Bitcoin a few years ago, right? It's actually the model of it itself. It gets harder to mine with time. There's going to be a limited number of them. The amount going into circulation slows down over time. In a weird way, the scarcity and the increase of value is kind of built in to the system itself, but it means more and more people are going to be mining. And this argument that gets made inside the crypto community is that the usage of power will level off, which I don't fully understand. That essentially there'll be so much competition to mine bitcoins that it will kind of like reach a ceiling, and then we can use the cryptocurrency with a sort of set power level. And what's interesting about that is that if they're right, it kind of makes sense. The scarcity goes up, so you're dealing with fractions of a Bitcoin, but because they're worth more in the real world when we translate it to other currencies, it's like the same amount of volume has more power and impact, if you like, right? Like if it costs me, let's just make it super simple and say it costs me 1 megawatt of energy. I've made that up, it's probably not a real wattage, to process 1 Bitcoin. Then if the Bitcoin is worth $1, that seems ludicrous. But if it's worth $100,000, then all of a sudden, there's a lot that you can move and do with $100,000, and that trade-off all of a sudden seems relatively reasonable, right? So it's hard to assess because there's only a limited amount of information on how much power usage is being used by all this crypto mining. People connect to the system. You can see what graphics cards they're using possibly. I'm not entirely sure how much information is available, but you can't exactly assess how efficient what they're doing is and where the energy is coming from. So there are big concerns that we could be guzzling up energy from bad energy sources that have an impact on the environment, and of course creating all the hardware to do it does as well. So bringing this back round to the NFT stuff, like this NFT boom that's happening right now, it's going to have an environmental impact through the power that it uses, and how much it will is hard to be determined fully at the moment. And so inside, the art community where people are taking to this, especially in the digital space, then it also needs to be some sort of awareness that this is having an environmental impact, whether you like it or not, and it really needs to be thought out before this train runs away, because we're trying to reduce emissions, we're trying to, as a global community, move into a sort of green future, and along comes this train of energy consumption that people are drawn to through the fear of missing out, the speculation, and the possibility to make some of these astronomical amounts of money for seemingly effortless things that are taking place right now. My advice is to really not get involved unless you really know what you're doing. And to wrap this up, right? I've been watching videos, learning about this stuff. Really funny conclusion to end this on. Okay, I was watching a video from the Punk Rock MBA about butt rock, which is his term for this sort of genre of music that happens just around the time, a couple of years into me being a teen, really getting into music, which I love. And he talked about this curve. I wish I could draw it for you right now. It's like you have this hype wave that goes up, and everyone's getting in on it, and then the bubble bursts, and it comes down, and it goes all the way down to the bottom. And then after a while, it kind of recovers to a middle line, and then plateaus. And he was talking about how you have this big hype wave of all the butt rock bands like Nickelback and whatnot, and then everyone gets over it after a few years, and then doing that is just so not cool. Nu metal is another example of that. Nu metal had this crash, and then after 5 to 10 years, you can kind of come back and do that again, and you'll find an audience, and it levels off. Well, this is the same thing that could potentially happen with all this crypto stuff, right? It's a big boom right now. This is why I think it would be smart not to get on in it and throw money at it unless you think you know what you're doing. I mean, I don't recommend it, because it's probably going to do the same thing. It's going to crash all the way down when people realize, or when it first starts to dip, and then all the speculators panic, and then no one wants to buy stuff, right? It's going to be like a dot-com bubble crashing. And then after that, it will eventually, over time, find some uses and come back to that kind of steady plateau in the future. And I thought it was funny because I saw this one YouTuber talking about it with music and Nickelback and butt rock, and then another YouTuber, Cold Fusion, talk about it with NFTs. And I was like, yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because I just saw someone talking about butt rock and using the same analogy. Oh yeah, one more thing to mention actually, the Cold Fusion video. He gave a really good example of what might happen in the plateau, which was that you could, on his channel, buy an NFT which acts as a share and gives you voting rights. And I thought that was super interesting use for it. And it started to make me think about, what if I did some sort of thing on Twitch in the future, maybe a mod pack with some integration with the audience, and we could create, maybe it doesn't even need to be NFT technology, but y'all are stakeholders, right? And then let's say we give them out for free, but then you're allowed to trade with one another, and then it creates some sort of value for you, the audience, that some of you can make a bit of money on or whatever. But then again, it's also getting into sort of a sense of artificial value. I don't know. It was an interesting idea, and I probably didn't explain it very well. Sounds like Vault Hunters with extra steps. I wasn't thinking of Vault Hunters. I was thinking that you create some sort of system where the people that hold the tokens get to have a say in what you're doing. So it's oh, are we going to do, earlier when I was we're going to breed the bees or do some building? It's little moments like that. The people that hold the tokens get to take the key votes, right? You have a whole system and API, so everyone votes and it comes back through. But then someone who's more invested and interested in actually having a say in what I do in the stream can then buy that off of someone else. But again, I'm not sure I'm terribly comfortable with that. I thought it would be a cool way to create some value in and around that. Whoa, wait a minute, we've got mobs spawning. I just realised that we haven't lit this area up. Moment of focus, moment of focus. Right, chat. NFT questions, let's go. So you're saying I should put my mortgage on Bitcoin at 100 times leverage? Nope. No, I am not. I think there might be a future in Bitcoin, but it's also currently embroiled in these environmental questions. But again, the key thing is the fear of missing out. Shouldn't focus on more of what's in your control in your life and what's of value to you that you can enjoy right now, as opposed to financial speculation. I just feel like it's a bit of a trap that can be easy to fall into, I guess. It kind of translates a little bit to what I do here on Twitch, is that I was interested in making videos and I did it. And that was something that was in my control. It wasn't like a big roll of the dice, what will happen in the future. If I started thinking, in 2021, I want to own my own home and I want my job to be making videos and streaming all day and have a nice studio and, other things like I've got a home gym and all of this, that would have been a huge gamble. That would have been a big pressure. It never had that in it was all about just creating something, right? So that's the kind of point that I'm making, is that you're sort of looking at this other world, this place with all these people and these extraordinary amounts of money, and it creates this fear of missing out on it. That's not really a healthy place to make decisions from, is it? If you're a programmer and you're fascinated by the concept of cryptocurrencies and you're going into it and it's all interesting and you're like, oh, I could write some code and do this and that, that's a very different relationship to have with it all than this idea of, oh, these people are making money, I need to get on this, right? So it should be about you finding your things. What are you good at? What could you do? What's your cryptocurrency? Right? Because then when you go into something where it's like, oh, I found this thing that I'm really interested in, that's the pleasure of doing it, that's the reward, and not this idea of, oh, I have to, gamble all my money and possibly make some money off this thing that I didn't even know or care about a while ago, right? Do things that you're passionate about, and if they happen to end up being fortunate and make you some money and some comfort in life, then that's terrific. But you'd never have lost anything by pursuing it in the beginning. I'd invest in derp coins, says Darth Poeter. You know what I really want to do right now? I really want to make a mock cryptocurrency called derp coins. I keep thinking about it, but I don't have any coding ability to execute anything like that. But I don't know, some sort of simple, not a proper, not even a electricity guzzling system. I'm talking about just something to imitate and kind of mock a little bit the whole crypto thing, and have derp coin that all of y'all can earn. I mean, we got the viewer thing called Harmony here on Twitch. I mean, maybe I could look into what else is possible with that and maybe rename it to derp coin. And I love the idea, like we were joking about the last stream, tying the value of it to derps. If I do a derp in a stream, the value goes up or something. Or it steadily ticks down when I haven't derped in a while. I don't know. Silly ideas. They're all good fun, right? Wouldn't that convince chat to make you derp more, says Cuplex? Oh, they can try and convince me, but I am always the master of pressing that derp button, right? I'm the one who has the final say. And I'll tell you, there's some derp fiends out there as well. But it'd be so much fun. We could have all the jokes, all the jokes.